Tom is gonna make it. Yep, you got. Yeah, Tom was a bit of an unknown. Got 'em all.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think we've got everybody but Tom. That's
Yeah, can we confirm that those of you online can hear us?
You guys are sounding good tonight.
Great.
perfect. So we can call the meeting to order at 6:48 p.m. And there is one thing that is not on our agenda, but I think it was sent out to everybody by Alan, which is the Rights of Water Guardians thing. So I just want to note that at the beginning that we'll need to add that in somewhere so we can talk about that one. And so welcome, Chris, getting appointed, and welcome back, Alan. We're glad to have you guys here for sure. Do you want to say anything about yourself, introduce yourself to the crew?
I think most people know who I am at this point. So just excited to be working on some of the projects that I pushed you guys into adopting early on, and yeah, glad to still stay involved in town.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Well, it's good
And
to be back on SAB again. I was on before I got on the BOT, and I'm back. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to work with all of you.
Great to have you. Especially since we didn't have a lot of selection to choose from. It was just the three of us that were up for appointment there. So the first thing on our agenda is US Solar and the meeting that you guys have been having. So I don't know if that's Erica.
So we actually have, I think, Erica Foreman here,
Yes.
who was
In
going to
England.
present from US Solar, and Erica in Europe.
Two Ericas.
Wonderful. So you guys take it away.
Okay, why don't Erica Forsman, I'm just going to do a quick introduction if that works for you. And then I know you have a presentation for us today, which is great. So we're really lucky to have Erica here. The few of us that were at the COSA Clean Energy Solutions Summit were able to meet Erica briefly. You're there for most of it, but not all of it. And Erica is going to present to us a number of options that we have with US Solar. Miranda and myself were able to meet with her recently again and learn a bit more about kind of these three different options. And so the main goal of having Erica here tonight is to really kind of make this connection for all of us on the SAB board and whoever else may be attending. And then see kind of, do we want to give our formal approval? What questions do we have? And really kind of start this conversation as a board as far as moving forward with US Solar. So thanks so much for being here, Erica Forsman, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me this evening. As Erica suggested in this introduction, I was a part of some of the meetings, but it was really the majority of my team, which consisted of Jillian and Michelle, and I believe Greta is now working on it as well. They all had conflicts tonight, so you get me. But I think I know the majority of what was discussed. There were some very good discussions, and so I'll give you a brief introduction to US Solar, to myself, and then we'll run through those three options that the group discussed, and then I have some additional slides, if warranted, to answer questions that you may have. So first of all, can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not used to WebEx, so I just want to make sure I'm doing it correctly. All right, so first off, my name is Erica Forsman. I am the VP of Origination for US Solar. That means that I lead all of our customer revenue contracting from residential community solar to large corporates like a Walmart, as well as our on-site programs that we do as a company. So anything customer facing is what my team leads. And just a quick background on us, US Solar, we are focused on brighter communities. So we really specialize in working with solutions that meet the needs of schools, municipalities, local businesses, as well as residents. We are a full service provider. That's something that separates us from a lot of other developers in the world of solar, which means that we try to develop, own, and operate our projects. So we're the person that you start the conversation with. We're also the person operating that community solar garden once it's online. Our team combined has done over 1.5 billion in solar projects, and right now we have 130 megawatts of community solar that's operational. In Colorado specifically, we are doing 55 megawatts over starting this year through 2024, which is what we'll talk about today, and hoping to do many more. So a lot of different gardens are happening. This is just a quick look at some of the partners that we have on the municipal or corporate side. We've worked with 75 different entities ranging from, the city of Minneapolis or the University of Minnesota. We're based in Minnesota. We have offices in Denver, so you'll see a lot of Minnesota logos like the Twins here, as well as in Colorado specifically. We're partnered with Energy Outreach Colorado. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Working with Ardent Mills, working with Wells Fargo on some of our projects specifically in your state, as well as the city of Rocky Ford's on there as well. So a lot of different entities.
Hold on just a second. We lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Back? Will you repeat what you were saying? We just lost you for a brief moment.
Oh, I think I was just listing off some of the example partners that we have in Colorado specifically. That includes Energy Outreach Colorado and Wells Fargo, City of Rocky Ford, Ardent Mills is another example of some of the local partners that we're working with. All right, so jumping in, as Erica mentioned, there are 3 different options I'm going to walk you through that came out of the Solutions Summit, looking to meet some of the desired goals that your committee has for the city. So the first option that we have is to participate in some of those existing community solar gardens. That's the 55 megawatts that we're currently preparing for construction over this fall into 2024. These are projects that have already been awarded through the Excel RFP. They're at various locations around Colorado, and we could offer what we call our partner program, which is a way that residential residents of your city could participate in that community solar garden. And I'll talk more about the partner program later on if it's desired, but it's a way that we can help you to market and share that opportunity. And then we can go ahead and make a donation on behalf of anyone that signs up to your nonprofit, or maybe it's a sustainability goal that you have within your committee that you want funds to go to as part of that. We like to make sure that we connect any projects that we're doing back to the communities that we are serving. And then we report back on the number of participants and the kilowatt hours that fall within that partner program. So you would get reports back. So that's the high level of how that works. The timeline for the gardens that are being worked on right now, if you pursue this opportunity, is that we would be breaking ground on those this fall, and we'd want to work with the city around the same time to get the word out, to do some messaging and branding and provide materials for those that are interested in participating. And we would expect the first projects in that batch to be online in the spring of 2023. And there's several behind them. So that is option 1. Option 2, which all of these can be done together or separately. I should have made that clear. It's not a one or the other as you consider them. But option 2 would be to participate in our low to moderate income, or LMI, which is what it's called within the program, offering that we have. There's an amazing opportunity to any of your residents that would qualify as LMI. We were awarded a significant capacity of donated community solar, which means that anyone who signs up under this program will receive bill credits, and then they will not receive an invoice from US Solar. So we are talking, the full 6 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour that they would be credited on their bill at no cost to them. So this is an amazing opportunity, and we have partnered with Energy Outreach Colorado, who you may be familiar with. They do most of the low-income energy efficiency programs within the state, as our enrollment partner, as they are already better equipped to serve that population, to identify, to communicate, and enroll those specific residents in this opportunity. So this would be a great way we would connect the town and Energy Outreach Colorado to make sure that we're marketing and making that opportunity available to residents that would qualify, and so they can capture that donated community solar capacity. And then option 3 is the one we kind of spent the most time talking about in terms of targeting a specific project for the city. This would be a way of doing a custom community solar garden. And so we would work with the city as well as residents and small businesses to develop a specific project to put into the upcoming 2022 Excel Solar Rewards Community RFP. And we would craft that bid because there's some additional points within those RFPs for community focus. And so we could design that to set out to subscribe just the resident small businesses and maybe a larger, I know there's talks of a ski resort local to you that may want to participate specifically in this project. I think it could tell a great story. It would be a great way to really brand around a specific project that the city is doing. But what is important to remember here is this is an RFP, and it's a very competitive RFP, and there is no guarantee that this option would be awarded. So if you wanted to move forward with this one, that RFP opens this fall in November. Projects are typically awarded in December. So we'd want to partner the next couple of months to come up with that specific bid. We would be doing all the work, but we'd want to come up with the story, the benefits to the community that we may want to give back that are all part of that in the coming months, so we're prepared for that RFP to open. And if awarded, we would then go through development in 2023 and likely be breaking ground in early 2024 and put a project online later that year. So I know there was a lot of information in those 3 different opportunities, but I want to stress that each of them could be done independently, or you could choose to do all 3. I'll end what I'm currently talking about with just kind of a timeline slide that the team put together, because I know there's a lot of different dates that were discussed. Just reiterating that, if you were interested in just offering capacity specific to residents and doing a push for them to participate to help meet your sustainability goals, we could do that right now, today, with our existing community solar gardens. If you want to pursue the low to moderate income partnership with Energy Outreach Colorado for that donated capacity, that would be something we want to look at this winter and then into 2023 to prepare for those projects to come online in early 2024. And then finally, if you pursued kind of that custom community solar garden that we would bid in to the upcoming RFP round with Excel, we would start on that now, but if awarded, that project would not be online until late 2024. So I just wanted to kind of lay those pieces out. So with that, I'll pause. I have more information specific on the partner program if people are interested, and kind of the marketing materials that go behind that, but I'll pause for a moment. Erica, if there's anything you want to add, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
Erica, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erica Forsman. So I think we can get into the weeds on a few things. I think the timing is something that kind of I had to wrap my own brain around a bit. As far as we don't want to subscribe folks too early. So especially the LMI option, we really don't want to tell somebody about free energy and then they have to wait a year to get onto that. So that's something we want to think about time-wise. Even just this custom solar garden, there would be quite a bit of homework between now and when the bids are awarded with Excel. And the existing community solar garden may be something that might be a little bit sooner into action than perhaps all of these options, as far as really trying to get subscribers and starting a campaign. The other thing that was new to me, just want to share briefly, is for community solar gardens, the last few years, we've been talking about this anchor subscriber, and that would be, hopefully Eldora. They're willing to take 40%, which is the most anyone can take of our community solar garden. But talking to US Solar recently doesn't necessarily make our bid more competitive or look better to Excel. It may make us look better to US Solar because that's a large subscriber, but we've gone back and forth on this commercial piece, which I have been doing quite a bit of research on the current list of community solar gardens through Excel, the one that they advertise right now in Colorado, and there's really nothing available for commercial. And so this large commercial is different than small scale commercial. So that's something we can also parse out. There could be more space for small commercial, even if we did have a 40% anchor from Eldora. But just something to think about as far as how we make this bid really competitive. And US Solar would be ready to advise us along that way. But that's really going to shape who the subscribers are going to be for our project. Is really deciding kind of what is the most competitive allotment of these subscriptions for Excel. What are they going to look at most favorably? So let me stop there. Questions, please jump in. We're really lucky to have Erica here. So thank you, Erica. That was a great introduction. Who has questions?
Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. So the existing community solar garden, is that the one that's 5% below the current fossil fuel blend?
In terms of the discount that's offered?
Yes.
So yes, the standard discount is off of the bill credit, which in Colorado is based off of this primarily the supply component on your bill, along with a couple other small components. And the discount that's offered is a guaranteed 5% off of whatever the current bill credit rate is. So if a resident subscribes, even if that bill credit rate moves up or down, they always know that they will capture 5% savings on that kilowatt hour. Does that make sense?
And that's a 20-year contract?
It is, but with residential, they can leave at any time with just 60 days notice. We know that things change, people move. We don't want to make anyone feel like they're stuck. So yes, it is a 20-year term, but that is to match the program length and give them the maximum opportunity to participate.
Well, I think it's cool to lock in a 5% discount for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. And Eric, I didn't quite understand why you weren't as enthusiastic about the low and middle income option.
Oh, I'm very enthusiastic. It's just that opportunity is just specific to people that will income qualify for it. So I think that's an opportunity that the city or the town is very interested in, because it is a complete donation of that 6 to 7 cents. So that's 100% savings on that bill credit. And I think no matter what opportunity you might pursue for people outside of that category, making sure that we can connect some of your residents to that program makes absolute sense. So if I didn't seem enthusiastic, I apologize, because that is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity that we have 100% donated capacity that we're able to offer.
Yeah, we've been looking for that for years, so that sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think I heard one of you say that we can do more than one of these at once. Is that true?
That is true. So you could proceed with option one in terms of launching a partner program, which I can share a few slides on here in a minute, to get residents participating. You could then also launch the phase to go after LMI specific participants and get them capturing that benefit. And then we could also go after a custom CSG bid, which, as Erica was mentioning, there's some ways to make it more competitive. Without getting into too many details right now, there's categories that involve agriculture, or maybe there's a low to moderate income service provider, so a nonprofit providing service to people in the LMI community. There's lots of ways that we can maybe find people within your area that might qualify for those special categories, which get us more points, along with going after some of the other commercial small businesses within that bid. So there's a few different, I guess, segments of the population that might be better served by some of these different options. So you absolutely could do all three, or you could pick just one.
Well, I like the idea that two of them already exist, they're in place, and we can move ahead with them. You know, having been through bidding on trying to put together a solar garden years ago and spending almost a year and bidding and then not getting picked by Excel. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pursue that, but if we have two existing programs we can take advantage of immediately, I think we ought to focus on that. And then, maybe look long-term at trying to get a bid. And from what Erica, you said, is it looks like Excel has shrunk up the amount of solar garden availability, which is going to make it even more difficult to be in that competition. So I'm very enthusiastic about options 1 and 2 and cautiously optimistic about 3, because that's a lot of time and effort when we might end up coming up empty. But I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but 1 and 2 look like fantastic options.
Thanks, Alan. Larry, go ahead.
Erica Forsman, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Excellent presentation, so thank you. I do have a question, and it actually jumps ahead to some back of the envelope calculations I did a while back on the projected shortfall for the 100% renewable 2025 goal for Nederland. So in my mind, I'm trying to bridge the two things. One is, could we move forward on something, no matter what? And I like everything that Alan said. I'm just right there with him. But the number that I come up with, and it's back of the envelope and be crunched, but it was 400 million kilowatt hours annually. And so I'm just wondering, wow. I'm sorry, 4 million kilowatt hours. I gave myself an extra zero. I'm just looking again. So, we had originally talked about a 5 megawatt facility that could produce perhaps as much as 13.5 million. And then if we parceled out some of that for commercial, there would be, over 6 million kilowatt hours available just from a big build like that. If we were just thinking about marketing to Nederland residents. However, Alan, I think is correct. We could put a ton of effort into a bid that will not succeed, and we are not going to be very happy about that if that's where all the eggs in the basket are. So is 4 million kilowatt hours floating around in existing solar gardens that could somehow, under some possibility, end up being awarded to Nederland?
So in existing gardens, it has to match the category that was awarded and is available. So we have that kind of capacity for residential and LMI donated customers. So we had to bid specific groups when we bid ours, so we have to fill them with those rate types. In terms of a new garden, yes, because they're 5 megawatts in size. If one were awarded, that would be possible, and they award 75 megawatts, I believe, each year in this program. So there definitely could be capacity, but you're right. I call it maybe watts in the world of solar. We may get them, but if you're looking for just 6 million now, yes, between residential and LMI, we have that kind of capacity. I don't remember if that matches specifically with the usage of residential within your town, or if that needs to cover commercial as well, in which case I don't have that to offer today.
But generally, I'm hearing you say yes to that answer, that if we wanted to take that track, for example, and we did end up with a number that was, in that range, 4 million, 6, somewhere in there, you're saying, yes, it is available. Is that right?
Yes, we have subscription capacity available for many times that for residential and LMI. So that is available.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep. for 4 million. I just want to make sure, not 400 million. But
Sorry about that.
I just want to be clear what I'm saying, that we have multiple times of the 4 million kilowatt hour.
400 is a scary number. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Orders of
Alright.
magnitude are a scary thing.
Chris or Laura, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I raised my hand here. I had a couple comments. Kind of piggybacks on a lot of what Alan and Larry said. I think what we really, the only way we're going to meet our goals is to tackle and to chase all three of these. Because what we just heard is we can, under the existing and the LMI, we can start now, essentially, on getting our residential low income, which is of course the biggest chunk of our usage. We can start working on that to get those subscribed. That still leaves our commercial, and that is kind of the real catch of the custom community solar garden, is the ability to roll that out for Nederland commercial use. And so kind of circling back to what was I think it was Erica Thorley was saying earlier, was if we're going to pursue a custom community solar garden, it's great that Eldora wants to sign up at 40%, but Eldora is a megacorp with, they have Powder Corp as their backing, and so they have other options. I really think we should be pursuing the community solar garden for our town's commercial use and making sure that we have sufficient capacity to get the BNF, to get ACE, to get all of our businesses in town to sign up for solar. So I would really want to come down on sort of the, let's pursue all three of these, because we're going to need all three to fit our residential, our low income, and our commercial usage. And the one giant caveat I would throw in there, and this would be for town staff, is how much work is this going to put on town staff to help prepare this custom CSG offer or in proposal? If it's going to be a huge impact on town staff, then that's something we have to take into account. Thanks.
Chris Larson, I'm just going to jump in real quick, if that's all right. So good points. One thing that was new that I didn't realize is that 50% of a garden can fall under this. It's an acronym. Erica Forsman, please feel free to jump in. But it's the agriculture, it's small business, it's residential, it's LMI, and there's one other category of folks that can sign up within this 50%. And or what could be 50%, right? We're speculating what Excel is going to prioritize in this next bid round. But that small scale is a business under 25,000 kilowatts annually. Is that correct, Erica?
I believe it is. I apologize. Jillian would know it off the top of her head, but that sounds accurate.
So, Chris, that's a new addition to the conversation we had last. So that may be a number of our businesses in town. So we don't know exactly what a business kilowatt hour annually use is. That's private information. So that would be something that we would want to kind of go out and really try to do some outreach and see. BNF is probably over that. But many of the other businesses may be under that. So even if we did have Eldora as a 40%, there still may be quite a bit of space for a small business.
That's awesome new info. Yeah. I just want to make sure that if we're pursuing this as a town, we really need to be prioritizing the town residents and town businesses. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Eldora, it's great, but they do have Powder Core as their backer. And if they want to pursue 100% renewable, they can just actually invest and build their own garden somewhere. They've got the money to do it.
And I'll just answer that the town staff time. Obviously, we would have several meetings discussing a strategy around that bid and how to tell that story. But I want to make it clear that US Solar does most of that bid building work ourselves. So I would hope that it would be a minimal impact on staff. So we would be responsible for assembling and submitting the bid, but would want a lot of input from the town on how to craft that story and how to best serve your residents.
So just a quick update, piggybacking on what Erica just shared. So next steps for each of these options, as I understand it, and please, Erica Forsman, like step in if there's more clarification needed for any of these. But the first option is really to kind of build a platform and to decide like what might be our charity, like what might be, do we want to give back a certain amount of money to each subscriber, kind of what Sunshare does? Do we want to do some kind of token project development? Do we want to take that benefit back for each subscriber to an LMI project? Like really deciding the details. But that option one, like it's there, right? It's much more tangible than a custom solar garden, but we just would have to figure out the details and how to market it. The LMI piece, really next step is trying to get locals to sign up with Energy Outreach Colorado. And so that they are the ones that are really allocating these subscriptions. So that's kind of, it's in relationship with US Solar, but really they're going to be the powerhouses and really kind of pushing folks through this opportunity. So, and there's other opportunities through Energy Outreach Colorado. So I think that's a win-win for many reasons for our residents, and many of them may already be subscribers to that organization. I have a phone call in with them, and I know US Solar is going to do an introduction at some point, but we haven't actually been able to sit down and talk to them yet about this from their perspective. And then the custom solar garden, kind of piggyback on your question, Chris, too, about staff time. This would be really having a letter of support and really kind of having a formal commitment from town, like, yes, we want to pursue this. And then most likely we would need to either put it out to an RFP process just to make sure that we do our due diligence as town, or we could ask the BOT to do like a sole proprietor approach with this project, basically saying, here's a really unique opportunity. We're going to just kind of highlight this one group, US Solar. We'd like to continue with them and really being able to do our due diligence in that route as well. So that's kind of giving you guys an idea of timeline. But what really hit home for me is we don't want subscribers too early. So the LMI piece, like we definitely can't get subscribers now. It is way too early. These gardens aren't online. Plus, we need to work with Energy Outreach Colorado. Similar with this custom solar garden, we don't want subscribers until the project is like moving. That's an important piece. The existing community solar garden, maybe, quite a bit sooner, right? We could build a platform and have a landing page in a month, couple months. So if anything, other questions, just wanted to kind of share that clarification that I've found interesting the last few weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Laura, do you have any questions?
Well, I just wanted to clarify about energy outreach. Are you saying that they actually do the outreach then to Nederland residents to try to get them to subscribe to the LMI program?
So we may need to figure that out specifically. So we have partnered with them. It's our gardens. We were awarded the capacity, but they are the ones doing the enrolling of these individuals. They currently serve 15,000, I believe, residents in Colorado already under their existing programs. So I would actually want to sit down and have a meeting, as Erica was mentioning, do an introduction. How do they get those participants to enroll? What is the best way to reach out to the specific population and get them excited about, filling out a couple forms so that they can automatically enroll them in savings programs? So they likely have ways that they have reached those existing 15,000 residents. I don't know. We haven't talked specifically about this opportunity, how they would recommend partnering with a town to get the word out on that. But I'm sure they have ideas. They have a large staff and have been doing this for quite a while. So
That sounds awesome. That's great support for us if they can really contribute to that effort. That's awesome. All three of these sound great to me. The partner program, because you can get started sooner. It kind of reminds me of Renewable Connect, a similar, program. And then this low to moderate income, especially if we're getting some help with the outreach. And then to do the RFP with a custom solar garden, if we have help with that, significant help, and it doesn't take too much staff time, it seems like it's it's a great way to get closer to our 100% goal. So I think these are all great opportunities, and thank you so much for being here, Erica.
Yeah, and I have just a few kind of thoughts to put out there. One is I'm like continually teetering back and forth between pursuing 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, but not necessarily all 3. And then also the consideration of doing all 3. So I think number 2, it sounds like we're all for sure we want to pursue that option and be able to help out those lower income families. And then the only other thing that we kind of need to narrow down between us is, do we want to pursue 1 and 3 or one or the other? With clearly being the service for commercial properties, the kind of outlier there of what makes 1 and 3 a little bit different. So I guess one of my questions is pursuing a custom garden. You said we could get rolling right now, but if we needed to do some sort of like public engagement process and just poll people maybe about like why they want solar to help us kind of develop that story or to just garner momentum around it, how soon would you guys absolutely need us to make a decision on that and start to get the application in for this round?
So those applications are due in November, and I don't want to speak for our development team that submits them, or I should say it. But I would guess that by September they're going to want to have their plan of attack. We typically put in, about 20 gardens to one of these rounds, so this would just be one of many. But this would have a unique story to tell. So I think probably by September, we would want to actually be working on the nuts and bolts of that bid with the city to make sure we're telling the story. So I would say the next couple of months, you're deciding if you're doing it so that we have enough time to properly prepare and work together on that.
Okay. And then the other consideration with that is maybe not just partnering with the ski resort, but is there other communities like Gold Hill or Ward or somehow an alliance of different communities that might make that bid more competitive, or would something like that not matter?
I think that's open for discussion. From our perspective, we're very flexible, but I know that the number one goal was to serve Nederland specifically and the residents there. So we're flexible. I would defer to the town and what you are looking to accomplish.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if the narrative of the mountain community coming together to build a solar garden could help us propel that bid, and then it might be worth Nederland to help incentivize other people to do so as well. But if that doesn't seem to be a factor in what makes a competitive bid for Excel, then I don't think it's something we necessarily need to go down.
Melody,
Yeah.
one quick thing off that is we talked about, having a period of time, let's say 3 months for Nederland to subscribe as many folks as possible. And then possibly it opens up for another 3 months to Boulder County. And then at that point, it opens up to, all of Colorado, depending on who is available and able to subscribe. So we talked about kind of having this tiered structure. And so that could be part of the dialogue, like, okay, Nederland residents get first dibs and then it's open. And we could kind of create that sensation around, hurry up and get your subscription while it's still here. So I hear what you're saying about, building the story and really supporting the mountain communities. We could do that, I think, as part of this plan of who could subscribe when, similar to Renewable Connect, right? Like commercial residents were first, commercial was next, and it was gone in a few hours.
Yeah, thank you. That definitely covers that. And then my last question is, if we start with option, let's say we pursue all three and we start with option one now, and we end up getting a bunch of our residents to sign up, and then are we going to have enough to kind of fill out that number three, that custom bid, if let's say 75% of our residents are already on the option number one? Like, does that impact option number three at all if we do really, really well at option number one?
So I think because specifically with option three, the goal is to get after some of those commercial meters. Not, I mean, residential is great there, but it's really right now there is not much of an opportunity for commercial meters to participate in community solar in the state. So that being the number one priority, we would likely design the bid around a lot of those types of meters, and then we could still bid residential, and perhaps you still give remaining residents in Nederland 3 months to sign up. And if there's still space within the residential bucket that is decided to bid, then we could move out to Boulder County or to some of those other communities. So I do not think that doing option one really diminishes the benefits of doing option three. It just may mean if you have great success with option one, maybe some of the residential component in option three comes from outside your town in the end, if there's no one else that is looking for a subscription with a residential meter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm having a hard time finding any negatives to not pursue all three options. And I would just say, as Erica's talked about, like maybe one of the next steps is where do we want this, pool of money if we get some to kind of go, and what kind of projects might we want to fund? I know that our recently started Parks Department is going, but also might be able to use some help. And I think sustaining parks and open space could be a good place to put this funding if we don't think of another great solution. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Do any other board members want to say anything about this? Yeah.
I like everything that Melody just said. It does seem to me we should move forward on all three. As I look at it, it seems like we need to get moving no matter what. And I could see a lot of sort of what you might call parallel planning that could go on. As you know, a lot of this we're talking about marketing. So let's say to residents in option one. Well, we'd be doing that anyway. I mean, that's the plan. So we'd be doing that in three. So we could start now, and then maybe we would learn more down the road. So I just want to thank Melody for that.
Laura or Chris, anything else that you want to ask or add as thoughts out there?
I was just wondering about the custom solar garden. Are those typically within the municipality?
Great question. So the program in Excel actually allows that garden to be located anywhere within the service territory now. So to be clear, this wouldn't likely be located near your town, just with some of the land constraints that you have and also the cost of land. I know there was a lot of challenges around that when you've looked at locating these before. And that's what's great about the program is we can put these gardens in areas with nice, flat, low cost land, but still benefit people in areas that are further from there.
Thank you.
Nothing else for me. I just think I agree. I think we should be pursuing all three of these, particularly since they kind of stage at different times. We can get a start on the existing solar garden stuff and get people signed up and get some momentum going that can then feed into the other two.
Perfect. So Erica from US Solar, did you have anything more to add before I move to public comment?
No, I think that your comments all make sense, and we would be excited to do this with you. So thank you for the time.
Definitely. Thank you for being here. This is definitely exciting for us. So is there any members of the public that would like to make comment?
Tom's on now.
Oh, Tom, welcome. Do you have anything that you would like to ask or say?
No, I've been on for a long time, but I agree with what Chris Larson said earlier about going all three routes within the limits of what we're going to do with town. I understand that the garden could be located anywhere. It would be cool enough to have it close enough to go visit our garden now and then. But I think all three options are the only way the math is going to work out.
All right. Hearing and seeing nothing from the public. What more do you guys need from the board here to kind of continue on this work?
Lydia, I think a vote to move forward. Sounds like we have it. And then, if it's going to be to move forward on all three options, part of our due diligence is going to be reaching out to the other boards and then also the BOT and making sure that they're aware of this project and approve of moving forward as well, just to make sure that we've got everyone that, we've got the town on board behind this. That's going to make it that much more successful in the long run. One thing I did want to add to Melody is we had talked about these project ideas. I think we like to have some space to continue discussing that so that we can kind of pull together a plan as a group that everyone's behind. One idea was, we initially went into this COSA Clean Energy Solution Summit with US Solar asking for a token array in town. And even that is really difficult. It can't really be paired with the community solar garden model, but we could possibly have these kickbacks through the two, right? Definitely the program already online, and possibly through the custom solar garden where we did develop like a small array locally and had that token garden. So there's lots of different options out there as far as what that could look like. And I'd love to just have, a really good dynamic group discussion about that for however long we need to till we come up with a really solid project.
Okay, great. So I am looking for a motion from somebody to.
I make a motion that we recommend to the board that the town pursue all three options.
Second.
All right. Tom, yes or no? I'll go to, yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Did I get everybody? I think so. Okay. So that is approved, and we will then keep that topic on the agenda. And just remember, if you guys do meet to talk about this, no more than one-on-one at a time. But maybe perhaps between now and the next meeting, people can kind of brainstorm and talk with citizens about maybe what some of this funding could go towards that would be a part of this project, whether that's an installation garden or something else. How does that sound?
Super. Let's do it.
All right. Now I gotta pull up my agenda again.
If Melody,
Erica, thank you for being here. Yeah.
oh yes, thanks so much, Erica Forsman. If everybody could just shoot me an email with some of the project ideas that you'd be excited about, that would be awesome, just to kind of gather a list so that we can brainstorm and have a list of running topics to discuss.
Perfect. So the next two items I put on the agenda just so that we can kind of regroup as a board here and kind of get all on the same page of what we got going on and what's moving forward. So number 2 here, we've kind of touched on a little bit, is just the 100% renewable goal. some background on where we came from and kind of what that progress has been. I know that I've emailed a little bit with Larry and a little bit with Erica about kind of where we stand currently and what that looks like. So I don't know if Erica, you want to kind of go over that, or you want me to, or Larry, or I'm not sure.
I'm happy starting it off, and then please jump in as you guys have things to share. Larry spent a lot of time crunching numbers. I did just some briefly today based on the Netherlands zip code and a CS just shy of 50%, kind of based on the capstone document. But that has holes in its logic as well. So we can talk about that. The first thing really to share is the community energy report is what has been used in the past. We don't have a Netherlands town boundary community energy report at this point. So I've worked the last few weeks to get together a map of that boundary. It has to be a certain type of map for Excel to run the report. And they got it a few days ago, and they are going to update the properties within that boundary and then send us a community energy report for the town for 2021 in the next few weeks. So that's going to give us a really clear idea of, how many rooftop solar, how many solar rewards members, Renewable Connect, wind source, total kilowatt used. And so that's going to be really helpful as far as getting this more clear picture. So hopefully we'll have that by our next SAB meeting. We have a community energy report for the zip code, and that's where we have 27 million kilowatt hours as of 2021, and our renewable participation has been increasing. So there's some gaps missing right now as far as really getting a clear picture. There's about 770 properties in Netherlands, and the Excel report that the Capstone Group created estimated about 10,500 kilowatt hours per property. So we can get some rough numbers, but I'd really like to have concrete data from Excel. So that's coming soon. Larry, Melody, please jump in. And if anybody has specific questions, I'm happy to try to answer those or to get an answer and come back to you guys with that information.
So what are the anomalies of the town boundaries versus the zip code?
Town boundary is significantly smaller. So the last census, it was just over 1,400 people, 770 properties. Where we look at unincorporated Boulder County, that's going to be an additional 4,000 people. And then it's going to be quite a bit more properties. It's about 1,800, if I'm recalling from memory. I can pull this up as well. I don't have my monitor, so I can't double screen right now. But it's a very different picture, and the 100% goal is for the town limits. That's the only thing we could really set it for, because the unincorporated area is unincorporated Boulder County, right? So it's the library district, the RTD district for Nederland. Those folks live in Nederland zip code, but they're not part of the town. They don't pay taxes like the rest of the town residents do. So we decided years ago to focus on the zip code because it's a vague boundary and because it would have greater impact, right? So if we were able to switch the entire Netherlands zip code to renewable energy, we're going to be in a much better place, in that scale than if we just focused on the town boundaries. But it gets tricky. We also can't use town funds for unincorporated Boulder County, right? There's a fine line that we walk with these projects. So does that answer your question, Tom?
It does. And then where did Capstone get the megawatt hours?
So the capstone report is from the town boundaries, and that was from a community energy report. Their last really up-to-date numbers were 2017. Melody, please, you probably have been following this more closely than I have, but this is where we have a community energy report, but it's not for the zip code, right? That greater impact that we wanted to have. And that's for that 27 million kilowatt hours. That's the whole zip code. So, you know, Tom, it would be great to have you look at this Excel sheet that Capstone created, because it does kind of parse things out. I can send you a link to that from the drive. But there's, you know, for me personally, going in with this energy report from the zip code, there's just some things that don't transfer very well. We really need to have the more accurate picture of the town boundaries. And again, please, like, there's others that might be way more familiar with this Excel document, so please step in.
Yeah, I think that there's just two things that I would briefly kind of add to what the Capstone group kind of worked on, is that one major kind of point of what we were trying to focus on to really be able to realistically hit this goal is just looking at the shortfall on the grid, right? So while it would be ideal and fantastic if we could absolutely get everybody on solar or wind energy, we do have to acknowledge that Excel will be by 2035, what, 75 or some 80%, something like that. And the Capstone group, one of their, you know, kind of considerations was you could simply pursue that shortfall on the grid and still be able to say, hey, we're 100%, because we also can't claim the RECs for the town energy until that contract is up and we possibly switch to something new. And so keeping in mind that we wouldn't be able to claim 100% with RECs, how much do we really want to pursue? And I think, you know, the idea is we want to get as far as we can, but even if we get 30%, we can still say it, as the math works out, we're almost there, you know, or something along those lines. So that would just be the two things to add, is about RECs. We had initially discussed as a group, as a SAB board, previous boards ago, that our priority was getting new solar power online and not necessarily keeping the RECs. And that's why we did recommend to the BOT that they sign the Oak Leaf solar contract, where we don't keep the RECs. So I think those are the only two things I would note and add to the discussion.
Cool, thanks.
Yes, I have a question. It seems like we're getting different numbers from Excel. You know, they're supposed to be 80% by 2030, and then first it was 2050, then it was 2035. Now, I think I read 2030, but I don't know what we'll have in terms of coverage from them in 2025. So that would be a good number to have. You know, what percentage renewable energy will they have in 2025? Because they are moving very quickly with a lot of wind and solar in the eastern plains, but I don't know how fast they can get it in place.
Could I ask Alan, do you like the idea, though, of trying to meet the 100% renewable goal by using that sort of stacked approach of where we would try to calculate where XL would be in 2025? That was Capstone did that, you know, they used some base case scenarios where they stacked up, you know, the various elements. And I feel within confidence, if we got a decent XL number to start with, that we could use that as the base for then building out what we would need to get to 100% renewable, say through these programs.
Yeah, I think it's,
So
it's a good goal.
Thank you.
Chris or Tom, what do you guys think?
Laura, Chris, Tom, do you got anything to add?
I do not.
I think it makes sense. Excuse me. I think it makes sense to factor in what Excel's already going to be achieving? So, I mean, that makes sense to me.
My question is, being sort of new to this, where does natural gas sort of fit into this renewable, 100% renewable objective?
So it is not, it would not be included in that. Being net zero or carbon neutral or something like that would kind of be the next objective to reach. We specifically thought that it would be hard to get the town off of natural gas and get people to get on solar at the same time. So we specifically said we want to do just 100% renewable electric energy for the town of Nederland.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think you could get this town off of natural gas for 50 years probably, but it seems to me there's an equivalence between a therm and a kilowatt hour, and theoretically do like a solar garden equivalent to the number of therms that the town does in excess as like an offset, but if that's not really been part of the calculation, then that would just be adding complexity we don't need.
That's adding a lot of complexity. But this is Chris, sorry. I think you do bring up the good point is this is something we talked about in sort of offline conversations with the board of trustees over the last couple of years. You know, never really tackled it because we were, you know, dealing with COVID and trying to keep other things afloat. But the idea of maybe we should, as a SAB board, start looking at a recommendation to the BOT about new construction not being allowed to include new natural gas installations. You know, as part of a next step is, you know, to start that weaning process off of natural gas, which, like you said, it's going to be difficult, particularly for those who, you know, rely on propane and things like that for their heat. It's a tricky thing, but we can make some small steps by taking that first bit of saying, all right, no new construction can have natural gas lines run to it.
We have discussed that. So just full disclosure, like, thank you so much, Rich, for bringing up natural gas. I am really, really excited about creating an electrification goal for Nederland. It gets tricky, and we need to figure out what's tangible, because it may be very small baby steps. It may be 5% of people by 2030, based on current numbers. But I'm just kind of starting that conversation. And if you guys are excited about that, like, please, like, let's have a discussion, and get some experts in to talk about heat pumps and to talk about these other things. But as far as the natural gas piece and the building codes, some communities have decided to just not outlaw natural gas, right? Because that's very controversial, but to require that all new builds must be electric and natural gas compliant. So having an outlet for an electric stove, and you can add natural gas if that's what you need to do, but so that home is already set up for electric, because that is the future. But instead of saying, no, you can't have gas, you just say you have to pay extra to have both, if that's what you choose to do. So that's a different route, Chris, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. But I do think that this, EV chargers mandatory, and then, gas and electric. If they do want to do gas, they have to pay for both. What do you guys think about that?
I think we just finished new construction, and the fact that we were wired 240 to the garage made me get an electric car. I didn't have to have my gas car banned, but I was incented to get an electric vehicle. So I think that's the model. And then I was just thinking about this. 2017 is the latest figure we got. I'm getting my panels finally in July. How many months is it going to be before my panels show up in our figures? That's a long delay, it seems. And I mean, can we use overhead shots, or is there a way to use something to find the stuff that's missing? Because I have a feeling we're undercounting.
Tom, there is a delay. Luckily, our relationship with Partners in Energy, the PI program, we have gotten these updated community energy reports. Again, for the zip code, not the town, which is why there's a delay for this sheet, right? Because we've decided to go bigger picture. Side note, I'd like to update the sheet for the bigger picture for the zip code, which I did make a duplicate, but I still need to go through and just make sure all the equations are as they're supposed to be. There's some assumptions that need to be updated. But it is a delay. So your solar panels won't be on until our 2022 community energy report, which why we would get this time next year.
And how would they capture what I put in if I'm not running it through their program?
So you're not going to be on solar rewards.
No, we contracted with Sunrun.
So they will be able to capture if you're on solar rewards or not, if you're connected to the grid. So for everyone, solar rewards is basically giving Excel your recs. And if you don't sign up for that, there's a financial deficit with your solar panels, but then you get to claim that renewable energy. So what Tom's talking about, but they know when you sign in or when you log in your solar panels, because there's a lot of kind of hurdles you have to do with Excel. They have to have the final say for Sunrun to actually connect you to the grid.
That's why it took so long.
Yes.
Yeah, so community rewards you're enrolled with, it's just that Sunrun is managing all that kind of stuff, correct?
That's what I just heard, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's how I understand it.
I have a question. Do we know anything about the latest technology in the heat pumps? I know several years ago, they said at our altitude we couldn't use them. And then I was talking to someone recently who said the new technology allows you to use a heat pump at this elevation in this climate. But that's a much more efficient way to heat a home, you know. And I don't know how that leverages with electrification in general. But, you know, I think you need to have forced air to take advantage of the forced air heat, not baseboard. But I don't know that much about it, so.
I read a couple reports, and you're always over 100% efficiency with a heat pump. So then the question is how much over? And that turns out to be a very big deal. So if you could get 150%, say down in Denver, just as an example, what will be the decrement coming up to Nederland? And I couldn't find anything relative to Netherlands climate, and I looked. So if we wanted to get ambitious, we could this wouldn't cost us anything. I don't think we could put out an RFP of Netherlands could of its own saying, come up here and do some heat pump testing to some company. And they'd have to set up models, and it would take a year of data gathering under controlled conditions. And that's kind of the standard for research. And without that, we're just like, we have no idea. So, but I think they're coming. They care about this, so they absolutely are coming. Could I quickly cycle back to the electrification issue, which actually Rich raised? And I want to thank Rich for raising it. This is a huge deal. Just easy number crunching shows we have 3x to 4x probably of new capacity, electrical capacity that's going to have to be added to switch over from propane and nat gas. 3 to 4x over existing. That's just, we can't even deal with a number like that. So in my view, the BOT and SAB before that had their act together. They saw this problem, and they said, let's establish a goal that we might be able to achieve by 2025, which is the actual electrical that we have right now. So they're obviously moving forward in a really rational way. I think we should congratulate SAB, the SAB board, and they thought this through, and so did BOT. But the electrification part is a big deal, and I would invite Chris, if he wants to maybe think about some sort of new construction resolution that you might want to bring to, I guess, here first to start, that maybe we would have a chance to pass BOT, and why not? We could get started that way.
Yeah, I think there's enough interest here to put an electrification discussion on the July SAB agenda. And we can discuss it more at that time. Does that sound great to everybody? Yeah. Is there anything that anybody wants to add to this kind of 100% renewable discussion? Obviously it's an ongoing issue that we are going to hopefully work towards with this US solar component.
I just wanted to add that I was also looking into the heat pumps and trying to figure out the feasibility at this altitude, and made some calls and realized, and I just sent this email during this meeting, but realized that might make sense to ask Cynthia if in the permitting and building discussions that she has with people, whether she's seen people do it successfully up here, install heat pumps, and then we could find out who those people are and find out how it's working for them and how they did it. But in my research, calling around and talking to excavators and I don't know, I have some other lists, but of people to talk to, I couldn't find anybody who could really give a strong opinion about whether it's feasible up here. It was just a matter of, will the cost of it justify its output at this altitude? And so anyway, I thought Cynthia might have some insight into whether it's being done up here. So I'll get back to you when I hear from her, because I thought that maybe she would know. And then I had one other thing, I think, but I forgot what it is. Sorry about that.
I could jump in real quick.
Yeah.
So I spoke with David Hachimunji from the Boulder County office about heat pumps maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. And there's a lot of electrification push with the fires, the Marshall fires, and at the county level, and then also at the city, Superior, Lafayette, Louisville. And David was a great resource, and he put me in touch with a couple organizations that are really focused on electrification. There is success with heat pumps about to -15 degrees, so that's touchy for us. We do get temperatures a little bit below that, so you may want to have some kind of supplemental heat source. But we don't often get temperatures below that, right? And so the thing that we're at now, and I appreciate, Laura, you reaching out to Cynthia. I expect there is not many people doing heat pumps up here. There's solar thermal, but not many heat pumps. And one of the reasons for that is that it's really new. So heat pumps have advanced in technology. They are a lot more successful and efficient in climates like Nederland, but that's new. And so there's a lack of installers, is my understanding. And that's coming from talking to David at the county, is there's a gap. So technology is improving, but now we really need to get the people trained and ready to do the installs. Leah Yancey worked really hard to get a heat pump in her house down in Boulder. She's got her own personal story. She had to reach out to almost half a dozen installers to really find folks that were comfortable and she felt comfortable working with. So I asked David about, can we do like a training program even? Like, how do we really support this kind of rapid adoption of this new technology? Because it will be coming online quickly, just maybe not quick enough, right? Maybe we're at the beginning of this curve as far as adoption. But if we want to talk about this in July, it does sound like if we could all kind of do our research when we have the capacity, I'll continue this electrification conversation, with David and others. And we could discuss this more as a group and really decide kind of what makes the most sense for Nederland.
Perfect. That sounds great. Okay, Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this kind of general discussion we've had of 100% renewable electric energy and or electrification? All right, seeing nothing. I think that was great to just check on that goal and where we're at and where we're going, just with some change in members and everything like that. So thank you guys for that really great discussion. Next, we'll move on to partners in energy. So I think we didn't talk about a lot about this last month, so I wanted to kind of just check in on where we're at with round 2 and what, Erica, you might need from us in the next month as we keep moving forward with that. And it's great to hear that we're going to be able to work on those numbers a little bit too.
Yeah, so quick update on Pi. I know you guys saw my staff report. We did get 300 new energy efficiency kits. There are 3 pallets of these kits in the stone garage at the community center. And I know a few of us have talked, but my perspective is like, let's get these out as soon as we possibly can, save some energy and some money in folks' pocketbooks in Nederland. I did write an article on LEDs for the Mountaineer that should be coming out, I think, tomorrow, and talking about these kits and just kind of LEDs and how much money they save and energy and heat. So if you have a place for those, please like reach out. We can get them out of the stone garage pretty easily, and let's just get them out in the community. I believe we can ask for more. So if we go through these, we can just always try to replenish our supply. And then there's some effort for a Pi EV campaign. So this is separate from this campaign we're talking about on the agenda, which is going to be more of a community SAB driven. But if you have interest in this Pi EV discussion, like please reach out. It would be helpful to have some more folks in that conversation, and we will be looking for some outreach opportunities like we had done with the initial Pi campaign and the energy action plan. And then, stay tuned for this efficiency conversation. I reached out to Becca yesterday to kind of check in and see where we're at. And so one of my concerns is like to run a Pi campaign, we really need some engagement and we need some folks that are willing to kind of champion the project. And so if you are one of those people on the board or you know someone in the outside general audience in Nederland, please connect them and let's get them into the fold and into the conversation. Especially if we're doing outreach and education, we're going to want a team of folks really committed to this project. That's all I have at this point. Do you have any questions, Melody, or anyone else?
I don't. Does anybody else?
On the EV campaign, so are there next steps or, I'm just sort of, I'm just sort of wondering, like, what would be the next step for Nederland? Do you have any thoughts, Erica, just in general?
So the EV conversation, and Miranda, please jump in, is really focused on fleet transfer right now. And so we had a meeting that was just rescheduled for next week, or actually I think it's mid-July, to look over the data on some vehicles for the town and police department and public works to see kind of what electric vehicles may pair well with the use of these specific vehicles that are currently in operation. And then getting an idea of kind of how could we transfer these vehicles for town. So that's a very specific focus for this EV conversation. Larger picture, just had a meeting earlier today for the Boulder County Regional EV Working Group. They just kind of culminated this group into a report. It's beautiful. Once it's finalized, I will share it with you guys. Unless you want to see the draft, I just don't want to spread it widely until it's actually like in its last revision. but it's going to have much more specific next steps, Larry, to your question, and community outreach, residential adoption, equitable programs, even accessibility for EVs. So it's very, very thorough. So I think that'll help, Larry, as far as next steps from the bigger picture of electric vehicles in Nederland and Boulder County.
Awesome. That does help a lot. Thank you.
I've got a long flight tomorrow, Erica. I'd look at the draft. And yeah, I just for grins, I took my EV from Ned to Albuquerque, and it was a challenge. I learned a lot of things on my trip. Almost got stuck, but I got through.
Yeah, I think we need to be ahead of the curve. I think Nederland needs to be thinking in the future. We want people to come up here in their EVs. They need to have confidence that if they get here and they've maybe been driving around in the mountains, that they could charge up in Nederland and stop here and have dinner or something. And we need to be thinking that way. This is the future. So, but I'm really thrilled to hear this.
So, and just a reminder too, under the Transportation Improvement Project, there are additional EV chargers going into the visitor center. And Erica did some review that under the Peak to Peak Scenic Byway group under CDOT, we are going to file for designation as being an EV Scenic Byway because there are enough EV chargers to get you from Estes Park all the way to Central City Blackhawk without running into the problem Tom had.
What level of chargers are we talking about? Are they the level 3 chargers or just the little ones like we have now?
Well, so we'll keep our little ones, and then I think I don't know off the top of my head what the new ones are that are coming. I can see if I can find it.
Yeah, this is a substantial cost difference, substantial capability difference.
Yeah, I can find it. And if I don't get it before the meeting's over, I'll send it to Sab.
Cool.
I apologize if I've already shared this, but I think it's so exciting. Eldora is installing 16 dual port chargers this summer, and they will be free to guests at the resort. So I don't know what level chargers those are, Tom. And Rich, like I know you're a Tesla guy, but like I don't understand why Tesla chargers are exclusive. Doing this research for the byway, this peak to peak scenic byway route with chargers. There's Tesla chargers, but they're not available to every electric vehicle. So it becomes this kind of sticking point as far as, who can use it, who can't.
Well,
Yeah.
Tesla
that
started out offering these chargers as an incentive to buy a Tesla, and I think they want to keep it that way. They are actually offering their chargers in a couple of European countries to other types of cars, and Elon Musk has said that will probably come to North America at some point. And the superchargers here never seem to be full, but if you go to places like California, you actually have to wait to charge your car. So I think a lot of Tesla customers don't want that to happen because they want to be able to charge their car when they need to. I agree. And the fact that Tesla, I have to put I've never actually used another charger because I almost exclusively charge at home, but it's actually an issue. If you have a Tesla, you have to use an adapter to charge anything else because the cables are not compatible. But if we could get a Tesla supercharger up here,
let's stay away from doing anything with Elon Musk, period, as a town. I think that's just a general good plan.
A draw to a community to get a supercharger here. You bring in a lot of people, and those people generally have a lot of disposable money to spend in a town. So, but I don't see.
Let's not get into an Elon Musk discussion tonight.
Does anybody have any other questions about moving forward with efficiency for Pi?
Nope.
Anybody from the public have anything that they want to comment on? Okay. And I think now would be a good time to jump into the rights of nature resolution that was emailed out and is not on the agenda. If there's no objection to that. Do we have Gary or anybody here? Okay, maybe Alan, do you want to introduce this?
Yeah, I can speak to it. I copied everybody on an article from Jim Hightower. I don't know if you had time to read it, but it was about rights of nature. It's a national movement. It's an international movement. And I think what kind of precipitated it here was realizing we had a major industrial operation a few miles from town upstream. And I've known Gary Walkner for years. He's been involved in things like Save the Colorado, Save the Poudre, et cetera. Long story short, he put it before me. I took it to the BOT, and I think we decided that it made a lot of sense for our community because we have strong environmental values. And, you know, we had very little opposition to the notion that nature has rights. The ecosystem has rights. We depend on the ecosystem, and we're part of the ecosystem. So we had no problems, for the most part, getting the support to pass the resolution. And then Gary said what other communities have been doing nationally and internationally is appointing guardians for the watershed. In our case, it's a watershed issue. And, you know, upon further investigation, what we found out was up here, we really have two watersheds. I mean, it's one big watershed, but Boulder has the watershed that feeds Barker. Our watershed comes from Hesse and Eldora. So I think if we have guardians, what it really became apparent to us is we don't have the wherewithal as a town. We don't, number one, we don't have the jurisdiction in the Boulder city watershed. We do have jurisdiction in our own watershed if we pass the watershed ordinance. Aside from that, though, and I talked to Tom about this offline, is that, you know, what it really comes down to in terms of looking at something like the mine, we have to rely on other entities, the regulators that work with the mine. So that's the city of Boulder, that's Boulder County, that's the state of Colorado. So what I would envision is a guardian or guardians would simply stay in touch with those regulatory organizations and see what the status is of that. And then, you know, depending on how the BOT decides the watershed ordinance for our own watershed, that would be another issue where we would have jurisdiction and we could look at the things that were defined in that ordinance where we would want to have some oversight to any operations happening, industrial, commercial, et cetera, in our own watershed that does in fact go into our water takeout. But it's a broader issue in terms of the rights of nature. I'm willing to be a guardian. I don't think it's a lot of work, frankly. It would be great if either the entire SAB or some other members of the SAB would also like to do it. My name just got stuck in there. I was still on the BOT and I asked Gary to remove it, but he didn't get around to it. So it's in there. I don't have to be the guardian. If somebody else is passionate about it, wants to solo with it, that's fine. So I think it's a completely open issue as to how we deal with that rights of nature guardianship.
Melody, I just want to go over a quick procedural that,
Yeah.
you can see my message.
Yeah.
That because this isn't on the agenda, you can really just have a preliminary discussion, technically kind of under other business, but you can't make any decisions and really have to push this forward. So
I knew that we couldn't make any motions or anything
Yep.
on it, so that's why I was jumping into it before we jump into action items.
perfect.
Yeah, I mean, this is just information.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't have the ordinance, we don't have the language in front of us. Gary didn't get it to us in time. And we can look at it at a future meeting, but that's just an overview. And I think what we can do is get a copy of the rights of nature, or it's not an ordinance, it's a resolution. There is no legal regulation involved in the rights of nature. It's a resolution, and it's an overall informational gathering task to keep Nederland informed of the status of our ecosystem. That's really what it boils down to. The watershed issue for our watershed, I believe that is an ordinance and would have legal ramifications, and is a separate issue that is going before the DOT, and that came to us before it goes to the DOT. So.
All right, so we will talk about that again in July. Does anybody have any quick questions on that, just clarifications or anything like that? I do want to say, I hope you guys all read Rich's comments. I appreciated that. I thought it was a good addition to the discussion.
The only thing I would say is, I think that as I said in my email, the guardians need to operate under the sort of jurisdiction of the town. They're representatives of the town, just like we are working on the board. And their work, I think, needs to be transparent and open to the public the same way any other municipal business is transparent and open to the public. I think the best way to do that is under the auspices of something like a board or some other sort of board-like thing that the town might want to create. And I would think it makes much more sense to do it under an existing structure than have yet another monthly meeting that Miranda has to attend to, or bi-monthly or whatever it's going to be, up for another board. So, I think it makes a lot of sense for this board to be the guardians of the river, and you could even maybe add that to the name, although I'm not a big fan of long acronyms. I would want a lot more time to study the watershed thing before we had a real substantive discussion on it. I looked at it, and I don't really have anything to say after reviewing it.
All right.
I agree.
Okay. Erica, was there anything else you wanted to update us on before we move on to the watershed ordinance?
Melody, I have a few additional things, but why don't we move to the watershed ordinance, and I can update if we have time.
Sounds great. So Miranda, are you gonna do this one?
Yeah, I may turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Mahold though. So basically what we did the other night, Tuesday night, was we brought the watershed ordinance topic back before the Board of Trustees. This was something the prior Board of Trustees had discussed. So after the election, we felt it was appropriate with new members to bring it back and just assess if there was still interest. And so as a reminder, what it is the ability for us to regulate the watershed that is upstream from our water intake site, which is on Eldora Road by the high school. Long story short, there was interest. This is a priority for the Board of Trustees, and Mayor Pro Tem Mahold has nominated himself to be the person who will take this on along with Attorney Madsen. And so I'd love to turn it over. Sorry, Tom, give me 1 second. Turn it over to Tom to give, if you wanted to say anything else.
Well, I would correct one thing. I don't think there was a lot of interest I didn't hear a lot from the rest of the board other than it's a good idea, but we got too much to do. So I kind of countered with it's one of the reasons I ran in the first place. For me, it's a non-urgent but critical concern. So I put my hand up, and I'm going to be getting started on that right away. For me, that's a top priority. I'll work with Attorney Madsen and anybody else who wants to join me. I'd love to have you.
I'd be happy to be part of the conversation.
I kind of thought you would, Alan.
And I would as well.
So I would caution that when you make it 3, we're gonna have to publicly notice these, which is
Correct.
totally fine. I do know it does stunt progress in many ways because you're gonna have to, you have that delay So oftentimes we don't.
We're talking 48 hours, right?
Well, yeah, in terms of publicly noticing, but you're also being mindful of our attorney time.
Yes.
That's something we need to be very cognizant of, is that when we start to integrate our attorney into publicly noticed meetings, you're looking at a lot more time than what may occur in just a small subcommittee.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, you and I will talk this one out. I want to do what's sensible. Having just looked the budget over and I see what you're talking about.
And I'm very flexible in terms of my level of participation.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like not have people participate, but I would say it would be nice to have a smaller group and then you take it on to the larger group. And then Attorney Madsen doesn't need to be here for those discussions.
Or Tom
Exactly.
can meet with Alan,
Mm-hmm.
and then a few days
Mhm.
later, Tom can meet with
Correct.
Rich, and then bring it back to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And I would also be happy to have my contributions in writing. I don't, you know, I enjoy sort of reviewing documents and giving comments on it. And that's a public record that wouldn't, I don't think, need a meeting. So.
Yeah, awesome.
That's all I got.
Is there anybody who objects in any way to this kind of proposal of the watershed ordinance where we can kind of have a say in what happens upstream from us?
The only thing I would say, and it's not an objection, is it's a little bit unusual for the town to have the authority to regulate areas outside of its normal jurisdiction. And I would think that if the town was going to do this, there really should be outreach to get input from Boulder County unincorporated residents who are in this watershed area, who would be subject to this ordinance, to get their input and thoughts on it before the town would go forward. And I you know, a mailer or something saying, hey, you know, or something posted on their community boards like they have. I've seen them up in Eldora. If I were up there, I'm in the city, right? So it doesn't affect me. But if I were an Eldora resident or somewhere outside the city limits, I think I would be concerned that the town board was making these decisions without taking my input into consideration.
Yep, that's exactly the counsel I got from my fellow trustees.
Well, I remember Alan talking about other agencies, Boulder County being an obvious one. And I'm just wondering if this is where that wider approach would have to work, if it's going to work at all, so that it wasn't just the town of Nederland presuming to push out regulation, you know, beyond its borders. I mean, is that?
Yeah, that's true, but I think what Rich is talking about is also true. There's the property owners have rights too, and I don't think I don't want to introduce anything that the property owners that are affected aren't 100% behind.
You know, looking at the ordinance that Victor, Colorado passed, it says in there, this does not exclude or preclude the county. And, you know, the county regulations, I don't know if we supersede them or anything, but it's something to that effect that, you know, we would definitely be a partnership with the county.
Yeah, when I was listening into the BOT meeting kind of discussion on that, what I understood is that there was a little confusion, and so maybe the public might also kind of be under this impression that when we're talking about this ordinance, it's not that we're making regulations that now everybody necessarily up there has to follow. Like, we could do that, you know, in one sense, but I think that the idea that maybe all of us are really trying to head towards is we just want a seat at the table if something big does happen in that outlying area, and to kind of set up that structure and not necessarily forbid anything or make it tedious on other residents. And I think that might be one really good clarification just to make with different public outreach as we're going on, that the town of Nederland is not seeking to put out these ridiculous, you know, restrictions. We're really just trying to have a seat at the table if something were to occur in that area.
Yeah, I think the analog is how we feel when Boulder County makes rules that without getting our buy-in.
Does anybody else have any questions or input on this watershed ordinance? Laura, Chris?
I would only say, you know, before this goes to that final vote at the BOT, and even though I don't think it has any application to it, just run it by the water lawyer or water attorney.
We lost you. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah, I heard it. But his
Just likes to over and over. Okay, we're back.
oh, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, and this is, you know, for the BOT, before that final vote, just run it by the water attorney, just to avoid the same mistakes we made with the rights of nature last year.
You got it, Chris. I got that. I heard that loud and clear. Lawyers hate surprises.
Yeah. I would just say that all of your suggestions are making sense to me as far as getting it past the water lawyer and then talking with the folks in Eldora. Having a seat at the table is important, and I would definitely support an ordinance for the watershed. So it gets us a little bit more into a place where we can have an impact to prevent problems before they become problems. So thank you, Tom, for stepping forward to make this happen, even though there was limited interest in taking on something else, because I also think it's very important. And if you need extra help with it, I would be willing to help with it. Sounds like you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen before you get the Cora rules, the sunshine laws. So
We'll
do
stay
let
on
me know.
opposite sides of this. Stay on opposite sides of the stream.
That's right. That's right. But I think I very much support this, and sounds like we've learned our lessons from past adventures, and we're going to run it past the lawyer and the people of Eldora, and try to do it right. So thank you for your work on it.
You bet. I'll keep posted on my progress.
Great. So it sounds like you got Laura, Alan, and Rich that you can kind of pull from when you need support, and you can work out with Miranda when and what those meetings might look like.
Good.
And I think we're good to go. I didn't hear anybody opposed to pursuing this. So okay. And there was another thing on the agenda.
It was your board.
Officers.
And I have one
right.
thing for other business.
Okay.
I don't know, and I don't know when you're going to do that, but I have one thing.
We'll talk about officers, and then we'll let Erica go with her little things, and then you're on after that. So I believe, I'm just remembering, I'm not looking at notes, that we did officer elections in July last year.
Oh, that seems right.
So really, it's kind of gone back and forth. So sometimes we've done it in June, but having new members appointed in June has often been like, they were unwary to take on a position right away. And so we waited a month and we did it in July. But considering Rich has been here for a few meetings now, kind of knows the process. Larry's been doing good taking notes since he came on the board. And Chris is, new to SAB, but not new to this whole thing. I didn't know if we felt comfortable picking officers for the next year now, or if everybody wanted to push it to July. So I just wanted to bring that on the agenda. Rich?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What officers do we have?
There is chair, which I am serving, co-chair, which Laura has been, and secretary, which has been Larry. Tom, did you have anything to say?
No, I presume that as liaison, I won't be an officer here.
No.
I thought.
Sorry, Tom, you're limited. He shouldn't serve as an
you.
officer on this board. He can be you're going to be a part of your voting members, but he should.
Well, I guess we have new bylaws since what I'm thinking of the last time. Okay, so ignore me.
So Melody, this is Chris. This is really a question for you, Laura, and Larry. Are all three of you interested in continuing in your current roles?
This is Melody. I personally have asked for if anybody wanted to take over chair for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 times or more than that. So I'm happy to have somebody take over as chair. I'm also happy to continue if nobody wants to take that over. Larry?
I'm happy to continue as secretary, and I love Melody being in her position. I understand she might not want to continue, but wow.
Thanks for doing what you do, Larry. It's thankless. It takes time.
Laura?
Melody, I would echo what Larry said, that you just have the institutional memory of the board, and so we would lose something. I think if with Erica, I guess in her position it would help, but I think it just it means a lot to this board to have you in that position. That being said, you can always call on me more to step up as the co-chair and try to support you, but I don't feel like I have the qualifications to kind of take it over. But if you can help me, help you, I'll be happy to stay in the same role.
So Chris, those are your answers.
That was kind of what I was thinking. I don't want to speak for others, but having watched this board operate over the last few years from one step removed, I would hate to interrupt anything that it's been doing. It's such an incredibly well-functioning board. So I would say that if the 3 current officers are interested in continuing, then I would say we reappoint them.
I second that motion.
Before we continue, are the folks who were just nominated willing to continue?
Yes.
Yeah. That was what I was that was the gist of the question I was asking, if they were willing, and it sounded like all 3 were willing to continue and in some cases interested in continuing. So is this an action item that we want an official motion for, or?
It is on
It is.
action items if we do want to make a motion tonight. I just didn't know how everybody was going to feel. It's gone differently every year, so we can make a motion.
I agree with the motion and would vote to approve it. But I do think that we need to ask all the members of the board if anyone is interested in standing for any of the positions, and to make it clear, I am not.
Kind of narrows
Thank
it
you,
down.
Rich. No. Yeah. Alan, any interest in any of the officer positions?
No, thank you.
I'll make.
Yeah, Chris.
I was gonna say I think we can make it official, and I'll make a motion to reappoint our chair, vice chair, and secretary to another term at the SEB.
And
I'll second that.
we got a Rich second. Okay. And I'll call vote starting with Chris,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. All right. Well, that was simple and easy. So thank you guys for that. And I will continue to serve. And when I'm not around, I'll have Laura step in. So Next on the agenda is anything else that Erica wanted to update the board on. We've got about 10 minutes till we need to extend the meeting. I don't know if that's enough time.
I'm happy to jump in. But something I was just thinking about is in the past, we've done board member updates, and I just feel like I've been dominating these meetings. And so I just like to create some space for others if they have updates. I know, Laura, you're on the BVSD Sustainability Board. Tom, you have a ton going on. Larry, Rich, like all of you. So if anyone else would like to just jump in and give some updates on what they're working on, I would love to hear that.
I'm not seeing anything in the room here. Anyone online?
No, I think we talked about watershed stuff. We talked about EVs. I'm pretty much up to date.
All right. Okay. Jumping in then. So a couple things on my list we haven't talked about. So we have discussed over the years this construction and demolition funds, and that program was started by Chris Pelletier and has been earmarked as sustainability funds. And there is some money in that pot, and we don't know exactly how much. There's at least 1,000, maybe 2,000. The challenge with that pot is that the money is ideally going to be returned to folks based on the amount that they are able to recycle, right, from their construction project and divert from the landfill. So a certain amount of that fund needs to be able to go back if folks are able to divert, a certain percentage, and they can get that money back. So something to think about, that is potential SAB funds that we could target. And there was a discussion around zero waste and trying to help support the farmers market, and that's kind of where these funds came up. But I just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys have projects that you would like to see happen, I think it's very appropriate to think about these funds as a way to support sustainability projects in Nederland. Of course, it's going to need to be approved by the SAB board and then make sure that it is appropriate by the staff. And then it can be allocated as we see fit. There also is $500 that Eldora is willing to earmark for zero waste for 2023, which is exciting. On the topic of zero waste, there is a lot happening. Larry is the chair of the Zero Waste Subcommittee. Please feel free to jump in, Larry. Melody's also been really active. We've had some collaborative meetings with Farmers Market and the Zero Waste Group, trying to really improve the diversion rate of the Farmers Market event. And then thinking bigger, possibly taking whatever efforts and progress is made in that conversation and being able to bring that to larger events and other events in town. So that's something where funds may be helpful to help the farmers market get certain zero waste stations and supplies that can help kind of increase visibility of what products go in what bin, as well as, some other things that might help them that we'll figure out as we continue these conversations. We had a conversation with Patricia Dowd. She may be coming back to the SAB board as an alternate. She is working with the AmeriCorps group at the state level. And so I met with her about this a little bit ago now. And then Miranda and I met with someone from Civic Spark, which is a new branch of AmeriCorps in the state of Colorado. And there's some conversation about, could we have a fellow through this program? They have specific titles and duties, things they can do, things they cannot do. But the Civic Spark is really focused on climate and tangible kind of resiliency efforts in communities. This will be the first year it's in Colorado. It's been really successful in California. And it would cost the town a certain amount of money, but much cheaper than, adding an additional staff member onto town staff. So if you have more questions about that, reach out. We're still kind of in the discussion phase of, what would this how would this person fit in and what projects would we really want them to be focused on. The solar subcommittee, Melody's been part of that. Cynthia's been heading that, and we have come up with some new suggestions as far as how to make Nederland more solar friendly. That's going to be going to the BZA and the planning department, and then ultimately the BOT in the next month or so. So stay tuned for some updates with that. I may be helping Cynthia. She's really going to present that to those boards, but we want to have some more representation from that group. It's been a really fun group to talk about, what should setbacks be? How can we change ordinance to make ourselves more friendly for solar? It's been really fun working with Matt Hannon from PACE. We walked around downtown oh gosh, my scale is like off. I'm like, 2 weeks ago, last week. I'm not sure where it is. It's the middle of the night right now. Brain's a little fuzzy. But we are going to come back and run through town with him again on July 18th. If folks are interested in participating in that, let me know. It's kind of tough with a big group of people in a small kitchen in Nederland, businesses, but I'm happy to kind of let you jump in with Matt and kind of see how he does his audits. And then we're also really advertising this green business program. I talked with Josiah from the Colorado Community Action Association. They're really focused on tangible projects for folks that deal with poverty in the state. And so we've talked about e-bikes potentially. Miranda connected us to kind of have a discussion about that. Don't have any tangible next steps, but exciting thing to think about. And I think there's, really a lot of opportunity to collaborate with their organization on other projects. Thinking about this Energy Outreach Colorado effort with these LMI subscriptions for the solar garden, things like that. Cleanup day was awesome. Larry was there, Miranda was there, Tom was there, although I didn't see you, Tom. We were opposite sides. We were able to-
Mattresses.
What was that?
Larry and I did mattresses.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. You guys
Yeah,
were,
we were the mattress men. It was awesome. It was fantastic.
yeah. So hopefully we'll get some diversion rates from that, but it was wonderful. If you haven't volunteered for the cleanup day, there's a reason I do it every year because it is
One
just so
second.
fun. It's just there's a buzz and you get to see lots of folks you haven't seen in a while and you get to eat burritos and it's great. CC4CA retreat was fantastic. I've talked to a few of you about that. Was able to connect with a number of coordinators around the state. Learned about just lots of really interesting things happening. Big focus on equity this year, which was great. Some of the bills that didn't pass the governor's desk really were because of the increased potential cost on low-income residents. So some of the building codes and things like that. And so it makes sense, I think, for CC4CA to really try to be more inclusive and to really make sure that all perspectives are understood and represented when bills cross into the governor's office and into legislation in general. CC4CA, I think, does a great job with that already, but there's just a whole new level, I think, that needs to be present in discussions today. Also, I would love some Mountaineer article topics. So we had compost last month, we'll have LEDs this month. What do you all think is helpful to focus on moving forward? I know we probably don't have a time for a discussion on that, but I'd love to hear some ideas. If you all are interested in writing, please let me know. I'm happy to support however you prefer. And we've got lots of good writers in the room, but it's a great opportunity to get the word out and share your ideas on sustainability with our community. I think that's all I have for now. Questions, comments?
I think if we get some information on how heat pumps perform at altitude and it's noteworthy, that might be worth it writing 800 words about.
Great suggestion, Tom.
I think the household hazardous waste facility that takes paint and stain for free, just a good reminder for people down in Boulder.
Awesome, Laura.
Thank you, Erica. I know you feel like you're dominating the meetings, but I think we as a board all very much appreciate somebody that kind of holds that all together in cohesion, and that you're just on top of all these things. Because like, I totally forgot that I'm sitting on the solar panel subcommittee and there every other week. So, we appreciate you. And Miranda had
So
something.
Eric actually already kind of alluded to it. SAB alternate. As of today, you have 3 applicants for your 1 SAB alternate. Right? I know it's crazy.
Nobody wants to be on the board. They all want to be an alternate.
Patricia, a gentleman named Max, and a gentleman I believe his name is Gius, are all interested. I'd like to invite them to your July meeting so you can meet the 3 candidates and offer your recommendation on who you'd like to be appointed to the alternate. Alternatively, I could just bring it straight to the board. But some boards have been wanting to offer their recommendation. What is your preference?
Do we want to meet everybody and choose and recommend somebody? I personally don't care either way. I think the BOT would do a great job choosing somebody, but how do SAB members feel? Larry?
I
As a
think
member
BOT,
of both boards, I can tell you, we like having the, we'd love to have the SAB meet and vet and recommend.
Okay. Larry?
in that case, I suggest that we do invite them. Thank you.
Anybody else have input on that?
I agree with Larry.
All right, let's bring them on into the next meeting then, and we'll discuss that.
And we'll have their resumes, et cetera, ahead of time, right?
Yep, I'll
Yeah.
send their applications out ahead of time and invite them
Okay,
to
thank you.
come. One candidate is pretty unique. He lives in the Netherlands, but is moving here. So he's currently there
What
and
a
is
coincidence.
interested in being on SAP. So I don't know what that time difference is. I don't know, Eric, if you know. But
7 hours.
yeah, so just something to be aware of. I will of course invite him, but that's a bit unique situation here.
Suggest a YouTube video.
Right? That's a good idea. I'll see how he feels, and otherwise he could his very thorough letter to you all of why it's like 4 pages of why he's interested.
Mhm.
So if you can't make it, I think you'll get a lot of information from
that.
what he's provided here.
Great.
So just to add something, I would love to see some time really asking them what they're interested in and try to get them hooked when they do come to the July meeting. So, these folks, people can come and engage, right, without being on the board. So it
Absolutely.
would just be really cool to see if we could get them.
We
Catch
need
'em,
some
reel
pie
'em in.
champions and we need some solar promotions champions. And so we can take all the hands we can get, I think.
We should find options for them besides alternate to choose from.
It's 4:50 a.m. in the Netherlands right now, by the way.
Wonderful.
Good to know. We'll see how he feels.
Early riser or late partier, depending.
It's an 8-hour time difference.
I guess if we started though, it would only be 2. If we
Yeah, all
start.
right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Does anybody else on the board have any other business?
I just have one more thing.
Yeah.
I just sent you all a calendar invite. We're going to have a collaborative advisory board and commission meeting on Tuesday, July 12th from 5 to 7. The purpose of that meeting is to have all the boards and commissions come together. There's so many things that you're working on that intersect with others, like Green Business Program and the DDA. And oftentimes it's really only staff who connect you all. And so we felt like there was value trying to bring together as many board and commission members. We're structuring it almost like speed dating, where we'll have a table. It's at Chapita. We'll have a table where it has a member of each board, and you all can spend time talking about your respective projects, how you intersect, and where you can support one another. So we hope you'll be able to come to that. I just sent you more like a
Definitely
save the
have to be
date.
noticed.
Yeah, there's more of a save the date, and then we'll send the agenda out the week prior.
Awesome. All right. I think we are good to adjourn the meeting at 8:52 p.m. then. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us, those online and those in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
At all.